What's up, guys? I'm Frenzy. Today we're going to go over the patch number 16 and kind of just like walk through each of the changes and how I feel about them. So, the stun mechanic. We're changing how the stun mechanic works and moving towards a commutative system. This allows us to have a more reliable stun while preventing stuns in quick succession. Chain stunning. In short, whenever a creature or hero is stunned, we add some stun resistance that fades over time when not stunned. This allows us to lower the incredibly high base stun resistance all creatures had, so that heroes' stunning abilities are more effective. This is a two-part change. In this update, we've laid down the framework for the new system and applied it to only creatures, and then the next one they're going to do it to heroes. So, I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work. Like they say, in this one they changed it to only creatures, but I'm not sure if that means their like stun resistance to only creatures or the way that creatures stun the heroes. But nonetheless, it's going to get changed to both heroes and creatures eventually. And what I'm only really worrying about is if they're going to be removing the possibility of those multi-pull with Hunger Bots and Springtrap combos. I think like the first one will always work. You'll pull into the Springtrap, the Springtrap will launch you, and then that stun will allow you to pull into another group. But after that, I feel like you may have enough stun resistance where you're not getting stunned anymore, and you're able to just escape that pull, and you won't be able to continue being pulled through, like, 2 or 3 rooms if somebody wants to do that, right? I have one of those in my dungeon where you start off and you get pulled through 3 groups and, like, the boss group, or 2 groups in the boss group. And I'm wondering how that's going to change things, as well as things like, Cyclopses. You may not want multiple Cyclopses in one group because they can't be stunned like multiple times or something, although that's already sort of there. So we're going to have to play around with this and see how this actually changes. Like, this could end up being an enormous change, or it could really not be all that bad. I don't know how long it's going to take for it to fade and stuff like that, and how like big the stun resistance is going to be. Like, are you going to have 0 stun effects after that? Like, is it going to give you stun immunity? Or is it just going to be a quicker, like, lower stun time? We'll have to kind of wait and see. So random item values. Attributes on items will now be randomly generated. Also, legendary and epic items will now also be randomly generated. So basically, this is kind of moving more towards like a Diablo-esque system where everything can be random. I think this is great. I think this is a amazing change, and I'm really like excited to go and farm and try to get that perfect item now. I think that what they had before was just kind of silly. Like, I would have, I would loot and have like the same item after I filled up like 3 inventory slots or something like that. I'd have, a couple of duplicate items, and I thought that was kind of weird. So I really like this idea. Alright, so attack controls. We've improved the responsiveness of the controls with the addition of skill keying. Inputs that were given not exactly at the correct timing were ignored by the game, including any clicks or hotkeys, which gave the feeling of unresponsiveness. So basically, if you guys even could hear my keyboard during the viewer castles, I would spam the key over and over and over again, because sometimes the game would just like ignore the fact that you inputted like that specific combo or whatever. You'd have to just constantly spam. I mean, this is just a straight up improvement, and I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work. Well, I mean, I do know how it's going to work, and it's good. It'll work fine. Only the latest one will actually go through, and like, this is just good. It'll add responsiveness and all that sort of thing, and you can still spam. It'll be fine. So it shouldn't like hurt anyone, and it'll just improve things overall. Game balance. We've focused on 3 specific areas in this update. First, we want to rebalance some of the hero abilities to use the newer framework for stun resistance. Most stun skills will have longer cooldowns. Now, this part right here a little bit scares me, mainly for knights. Most stun skills will have longer cooldowns. So things like punt, jab is actually getting completely removed, but jab wasn't huge to begin with. And then their stunning blow or whatever, these were really key in taking down Pete Poundmore. And like I've been saying in the comments for a little while, I don't really think Pete Poundmore is a problem at the later levels, because knights can take them down with losing like around half their hit points at best, or at worst actually. And sometimes they'll have almost full life if they do it correctly and they get a crit on their smite or something like that. But with this being changed, I'm not sure if that'll actually still be the case. That this might push Pete Poundmore and Scorpios into the OP category, and I'll have to like get on that bandwagon with everybody else. So in a little bit more details, this Knight's Jab had its stun effects removed, like I said before. I don't know if this is the hugest deal in the world, but it's definitely there. Archer's split shot has been tweaked. This one's a pretty big deal. Archer's split shot will not hit with all of their bolts at point blank range. This was actually like the new way that archers were dealing damage, because in the last patch, in patch 15, they changed how. I don't think they changed how crit damage worked, but they changed the rings from the 80% that was ridiculously OP to 8% or whatever. So basically, archers switched over to split shot as their single target instead of headshot. And with this being the case, we may have to go back to headshot, but headshot's just pretty bad at this point. So I think archers might have more of a problem with Pete Poundmores and Scorpios now, because they're not actually just able to like DPS it down really quickly, which was their strength to begin with. This also might make archers not just like not be able to get through dungeons in time anymore. It might have that counter effect as well. Creatures have had their stun resistances reduced. This is obviously just because of their stun mechanic change. We still don't know how that's going to work, so we'll have to test it out. Healing effects from the health potions are now instant. I mean, that's kind of a buff, which healing potions obviously don't need a buff. But, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I feel like this is fine. Like, there's not that many situations where you used a healing potion and then you died as it was giving you the life, because it came in like 2 big bursts. So I don't think that's a huge deal. We've adjusted the range of smite skill while using shift plus attack. Like, this is actually a pretty big deal, because you could be at point blank range with smite, and you could hold shift just because you were used to using that before, to use like the enormous range on it, how it was before, and it would just miss randomly. But if you would have just used the skill itself, it would have hit. So I mean, this is fine. It's kind of fixing what they broke the last time they messed around with those skills, so I think that's fine. The second area is the early game. Basically, they're changing all of the lower level regions. They're changing those creatures to do a little bit less damage and do a little bit less health, like have a little bit less health. And this is with Pete Poundmore, like I said. In the higher levels, I didn't think Pete Poundmore was that big of a deal, but in the lower levels, before they had those skills like Jab and Stunning Blow, it was really difficult for people to deal with Pete Poundmore, Scorpio, stuff like that. So there's more details in this. I won't go into that right now, but like, this is a good change. I feel like the early levels before you're even fighting player castles, like, this is obviously a good change, right? You want it to be easier for the newer players because they're just learning the game anyway. So I think that's good. Finally, we adjusted a lot of the traps. Now, that's also in this area. There's a lot of different trap things. Things that I remember is they're like significantly increased the spike damage output, spike trap damage output. I think like if they do it enough, maybe it makes it viable, which is great. They did lower the DPS on rotating cannon traps, which, I mean, that's like one of my favorite traps, because it was really the only really good trap other than maybe slow traps and fire minefield trap things. But they also made like level 7 and above spin quicker, so we'll have to test that out a little bit. Hopefully they didn't nerf it too much. Other than that, they took off the damage on springboard traps, which was kind of negligible to begin with. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. You can go here and check it out. I could even load it up and just kind of look really quickly. We'll give it a second, though. Economy changes. Tombstones left behind by fallen heroes in your castle will now reward life force instead of gold. That's great. Gold was kind of becoming useless at the higher levels anyway, so this is just better. And it also kind of makes sense, right? Heroes are living people, so if you kill them, you should get life force. I think that's a good change. I kind of wish they might have done like gold and life force or something, but it's not that big of a deal. I think that's good. So these are the first level changes. I'm not going to go through those because they won't really apply to most people, I don't think. The first, like, levels 1 to 4, like, people aren't going to stay there all that long. And then there's a bunch of changes to the knight. A bunch of, like, small little cooldown changes. And you can see the punt cooldown from 2.5 to 6. Like, that could be a problem with Pete Poundmore. I'm really afraid of this, because that's how I was dealing with Pete Poundmore. Is I was using, like, 2 punts, 2 smites, and 2 lashing things, and that would take down Pete Poundmore with doing like minimal damage to you. And then there's a ton of different changes to all of these. Actually, there's a big change here where the glue minefield placement grid is 3x3 instead of 1x1. A lot of people would use these to fill in areas where like you could barely not fit another trap, but now you're just never going to be able to. And also they reduced the snare effects of glue puzzles by quite a bit. So this is a big nerf to glue. Obviously it's the first trap you ever get, so it's kind of like a really good trap. I'm a little bit concerned that they may have nerfed this a little bit too much, but we'll see. Like I said, they reduced its damage output on the rotating cannon, but at level 7 it rotates faster, so we'll just have to test that. Hopefully they didn't nerf the damage output too much. I think it was like in an okay spot, maybe a little bit too much damage though. It could do like up to 600 damage or something if you stood in like all 3 blasts kind of from the fire. So we'll see. Increase the damage output of hamster traps. I wish they kind of would have like slightly nerfed the stun immunity that you get after hamster traps, because sometimes people can actually just like stand in there and fight for a couple seconds, but I guess the damage output might change that as well. Ballistic cannon, hopefully they increase the damage output enough where they're actually useful now. I think they probably did, but it's kind of easy to dodge these things, so we'll have to see how this works. Like I said, springboard trap, removing the damage isn't a big deal. Spike trap, increased damage substantially, hopefully enough where it's viable now. And again, with the fire minefield, again, the instead of 1-to-1, they have 3-to-3 as the like placement, like basically the grid that you place it in. With it being only 1-to-1, you could place it like up in a corner where other traps wouldn't fit, and it would work. Same as the glue minefield. And then gelatinous wall or whatever, that little sticky wall that you have to go through. Hopefully this small change here makes it actually stick to walls. Let's hope that they did that. That'd be good. And the flamethrower, I think that's supposed to be. Basically, I don't know what this does. I don't think I have this trap yet, or maybe I've just never used it. But yeah. So that's like the more in detail stuff. What else do we have? I did economy changes, shortcuts. Basically, when you're not attacking, you use the function keys to go through your dungeon and pick buildings. It just makes things easier, so that's good. Specializing your creatures. Now this is something I'm interested about, because I'm wondering if they're going to allow you to specialize specific groups of mobs. Like let's say I want a charging Cyclops and a smashing Cyclops in the same dungeon, but at different areas. So hopefully, with the specializing your creature is done directly on the creature, simply by clicking the place creature in your castle. Hopefully this means that you're able to do that, and you're able to specialize different creatures at different areas of your dungeon to different like specializations. I think that'd be really cool. Because like a lot of the time I would go through a dungeon, and let's say I see a hunger bot early in the level, and it has the punching specialization instead of the hooking. Well, I can play a lot more, I guess a lot less safe, I don't know, and like kind of just not have to kite around corners as much, because I'm not in fear of getting a massive like pull Springtrap combo, because they don't have this pull specialization. So hopefully that you're allowed to make different specializations. That adds a lot more customizable dungeons, I guess. So that'll be cool. We'll have to see what comes of that. Different changes to like how things look, like visual changes on golden life force mines depending on how full or empty they are. Obviously that's good. And like visual theme on the Snottingham Castle, not a big deal, but it's good, Basically it's all just graphical changes. Oh, and hero modes, that's actually awesome. I've been a big promoter of this since the game came out. You can actually taunt people as you're going through their dungeon, so the defender can see it during the replay. I think that's pretty awesome. I think that's good. The game is kind of just set up for that. So that's pretty much all the changes. I think it's going to be a good patch overall. Like I said, I'm really concerned about this stun mechanic. I'm hoping that they don't screw things over, that you need more customizable different areas that different things that you can do with your dungeon. So hopefully they don't remove chain stunning too much. But other than that, should be a pretty good patch. After this, I'm going to be doing a bunch of viewer castles. I have 7 to do overall, so I may do like 2 videos, 3 and 3, or I may try to fit in the 4th person in one of the videos. We'll see how it goes. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be doing some viewer castles coming up in the week, and definitely keep a lookout for those. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. See you later.